I was the President Bill Clinton's military aide in the White House for 2 years, from 1996 to 1998, the senior military aide. And that job entails the military aide carrying a large black satchel, which is formally titled the President's Emergency Satchel, which military guys being military guys, we nicknamed it the nuclear football. But it's everything the President needs or she needs anywhere in the world to either launch nuclear weapons or respond with nuclear weapons. And so it requires the President and the military aide by his side to make that happen. I'm not at all concerned about President Trump having that capability because I know how the process works, and it's not up to just one person. It would involve the President as the Commander-in-Chief. It would involve the military aide. It would involve using the nuclear football's assets, the communications devices and those kind of things that are in the football, all the way down through the Pentagon, and also would be reaching out to all of the commanders, U.S. military commanders across the globe. So they all would have input into when to launch, where to launch, those kind of things. So it's a very involved process that America has. It's not simply a matter of there being a button. That's for movies and to make the process seem trivial, but it's not. It's a very well developed process, and it's been around since John F. Kennedy was our president, and it involves a lot of people and a lot of moving parts.
So basically describe this a little bit for me. What's inside that satchel?
Well, I can't tell you exactly what's inside the satchel, but I can talk around it a little bit. Okay, so if you can imagine the president, no matter where he or she is in the world, has to have the ability to communicate with his senior leaders, his senior military. So there's communications capability there, satellite communications, those kind of things. So whether we're on Air Force One over Africa or Marine One in Innsbruck, or we're crossing the Pacific, in some capacity, he has the ability through the military aid to reach out and find his commanders. Secondly, it is the plans that could be put in place, anything from a small retaliatory strike all the way up to, God forbid, full-blown Armageddon, and those are all part of the football content. So there's a lot more in there that I really can't go into without getting in a lot of trouble, because as we stand here today, I'm sure that the military aide for President Trump has the exact same football, and I wouldn't want to compromise his or her ability to do that job. But as I tell most of my American friends when I go and I do speeches, it's everything he needs, the president needs, no matter where he is, to make all those very, very critical decisions in a very timely manner.
There's also this little envelope that the president has on his body at all times.
Right.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. To make the American nuclear process happen, in addition to the nuclear football, there is a credit card-sized document that's the President's nuclear codes. We affectionately call it the biscuit, because the president breaks it open and then reads over his communications apparatus. He reads a series of codes that identifies him as being the commander-in-chief and having that authority to launch those weapons. And so everywhere the president goes, those codes go. President Bill Clinton kept those codes rubber banded to a set of credit cards in his pant pocket, and ended up losing those codes one year, much to my chagrin and much to the anger of the US Pentagon. So it has never happened before or since, but President Bill Clinton was the president that actually lost those codes, and we never did find them. We checked out Craigslist and we never did find them, eBay.
So tell me a little bit, you were telling me earlier, so you actually found out that President Clinton had lost the codes when you asked for the codes to replace them with an updated version.
Yes. As part of my duties, the military aide does a lot of things in the White House. The military aide is responsible for Air Force One, Marine One, all the drivers and all the chefs are military, so they all come up underneath the military aide. But one of my primary responsibilities was, of course, the football. And every so often, I would be asked by the Pentagon to go just confirm the president had the codes on him and swap out the codes. They would change from time to time on a random basis, just so that we didn't have them fall in the wrong hands. So in this morning, they say timing is everything. This morning that I was there to see the president happened to be the same morning a Monica Lewinsky scandal hit the national press here in the United States, And I was the first person on the schedule to walk into President Clinton's office, and as I'm walking past the secretary's desk, I see it says, the White House Post says, "Sex scandal rocks White House." So I knew it wasn't going to be a great day to be working in the Clinton White House. So I let myself into the Oval Office, asked the president if he had the codes just to confirm them. He had been up all night. He obviously didn't want to be bothered with anything. So I said, "Do you have the codes, sir? I'll give you the new ones. It'll just take a matter of a few seconds." He said no. He thought they were upstairs in the residency to get them back to me later. So I came back that following afternoon. I pressed him on them again, and he finally admitted to me that no, he had in fact lost them and didn't know how long they had been lost for. We turned the White House upside down looking for them, never did find the codes. It could have been a matter of weeks, if not months, that our commander-in-chief didn't have the ability to react with nuclear weapons. So I had to call over to the Pentagon. They, of course, were incredulous because there was no process to recreate codes that quickly. They got them to me, however, they got them to me the next day, and the president didn't miss a beat and kept on going. But his most pressing concern at the time was that information not make it into the press on the heels of Monica Lewinsky, and so I kept that quiet till I wrote my first book, and now it's out there.
And why is it so terribly dangerous for these the biscuit?
Say, for example, that North Korea, God forbid, were to launch a weapon in the United States. The codes are what would allow the president to authorize that missile to be shot down. So that not only are they important from the terms of us potentially, again, God forbid, ever initiating a nuclear strike, but they're also incredibly important for us to respond in a retaliatory sense, just to protect ourselves. So again, there was a period in 1998 where we don't know if it was days, weeks, or months that President Clinton did not have that capability, which is why my book is entitled Dereliction of Duty, about our commander-in-chief failing in his responsibilities.
How does the process work? Can a president really launch a nuclear strike within seconds and destroy a country?
Well, the way the U.S. process is built and designed, it precludes the president from being able to do that very, very quickly. We in the United States value the human aspect in the process. We don't want it to be so overly technologically built that we don't have a human being at every step of the way on the decision-making process. So the way it would work, if President Trump were to decide he wanted to either launch or retaliate with nuclear weapons, he would then approach the military aid, in this case me, if I was still there. I have the ability for him to make those communications to the Pentagon. So I'm the first human being in the chain. He has to authenticate himself with his nuclear codes through me, and then through me we work down to the Pentagon. So I would be really the first line of, okay, as a military officer, I am sworn to obey any legal orders, but if the order is coming from somebody that I don't deem as of sound mind and body, or is incapacitated in some sort, I am not legally required to follow that order. So, and the way I justified my being in this position was, okay, if the president, Clinton in this case, gave me a legal and lawful order, and he was of sound mind and body, he wasn't incapacitated, I would then carry on my responsibility and contact the Pentagon. If not, I would not. I would have at that point said, sir, that's not a legal order and I'm not going to follow it. Now, the next step is the Pentagon gets involved and they communicate to all the commanders across the entire world, all the top level commanders across the entire world, in a matter of a few minutes, because we only have a matter of a handful of minutes to get this communication process from the president all the way down through these generals, then out to bombers and missile silos and submarines that have nuclear weapons on board, to actually start turning keys is how it would actually work. So there are another level then of human beings involved in the process below me and below the National Military Command Center at the Pentagon, who then has four-star general rank, highly ranking officers who then would be talking about, okay, is this a rational, is this a legal order, is this a good idea, how many targets do you want to hit and why, those kind of things. But again, it would have to happen in a really time-compressed time period, knowing that we only had a few minutes before their missiles might be hitting and we needed to be either knocking them down or sending our own missiles on their way as well. So there is no red button by the president's side. President Trump could not do anything unilaterally. It involves a whole bunch of people. It's been like that in the U.S. Since the inception of our program, and I go to bed at night not having any nightmares about what possibly could happen. I worry about the other guys.